Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast. And today I've just realised I'm joined with Alex, who is from Scotland. And we were just describing how different the weather is being here in Thailand compared to, of course, Scotland. But thank you, first of all, Alex, for coming on today.
No problem. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, as you know, this is part of a mental health series. So we're going to be talking about your journey as a natural athlete. And of course, when I messaged you, first of all, your physique, I saw it and it was like, this is sick. But also, we resonate on many, many topics that fall under the bodybuilding realm. So, you know, the exploration of natural potential first, and then either pursuing that or potentially, you know, people do go down the assisted route, and it's important that we can educate ourselves as to what the best route is. I'm sure you'd agree.
100%. Yeah, spot on.
So I guess probably the best place to start would be, what actually got you into bodybuilding in the first place?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think probably like a lot of people, played sport early on, rugby and cricket for me. And then I guess my story is actually slightly interesting in terms of that I came out of uni and I, like probably most of us, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I got a job in a supplement shop. I actually went to uni in Cardiff, so I got a job in a supplement shop on Cardiff High Street. And as a result of which, this is before Instagram, so a lot of supplement brands like USN, 𝗬𝗵𝗲, PhD, whatever, would send their athletes in. And USN had a really big bodybuilding roster. And they sent guys like 𝗬𝗵𝗆, David Hitterton, Lucas Gabris. And these were all NABBA pros. These guys are like 6'2", 300 pounds, just unbelievable size. Exactly. And I was like, wow, what even is that? Like, I want to be that. And that's, I think I saw these guys in real life and it was like, hey, what do I need to do to look, even a proportion of that? And that's probably how I kicked off, to be honest with you.
Certainly aligning with you there in regards to the exploration of what this journey can bring.
Yeah.
And, being inspired by other people. And you mentioned their social media, we can often get caught in the trap of comparison to others. But actually, like you said there, it's like, what could I do to get even a fraction of that, but have an inspiration rather than I want to be someone else that's completely genetically individual compared to me. And we learn that as bodybuilders, don't we?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think, you look at some physiques and you're like, oh, wow, like, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll get there. And unfortunately, as you say, we're all different so many ways, especially, height, weight, genetically. But, and what good looks like for one person is not what good looks like for another person as well. I think it's definitely, being aware of what you have and then just trying to be the best version of you. I know it's cliched, but try and be the best you can be, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, as we continue our journey, that can become blurred when we talk about mental health, the depths you hit in a prep in particular, that comparison to others can become more relevant. And you sort of think, who am I going to be competing against and this type of thing? And would you say that that's increased for you as you've climbed the ranks and become more successful in the sport?
Yeah, I think natural bodybuilding is a relatively small pond in terms of you're very aware of who you're competing against, and then obviously who the good guys and girls are, and then obviously Instagram definitely doesn't help that by any means, because you say you always try and make a rule. I always try and make a rule. I won't look at so and so on Instagram, and then you feel yourself gravitating towards it. So it's just not helpful in any means, because obviously we all know IG, there's filters on there, there's various bits and pieces. That person may have had a full day, heavy carbs, just pumped up, look phenomenal. So it's my strategy is actually, as I mute all the guys probably about 12 weeks out, nothing personal to them. It's just not a helpful thing to see, because then again, I know it's cliche, but as long as you focus on you and you're the best version you can be, that's all you can control. If someone else looks $1 million, good luck to them, but there's just nothing you can do about it. So it's not helpful for me to be in that headspace of constantly comparing yourself. When you're going towards a show off season, sure, you want to be inspired, you want to be motivated, you want to see, wow, what are they lifting, what are they looking like? But I think when it comes to prep and it's direct competitors, I think for your headspace, it's probably not the best thing to be constantly, oh geez, look at their update, they look sick, so.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when you sort of first get into it, it's maybe not as on your peripheral. That's where I ask if you, more success, can that become more stressful, more comparison to others, etc. But I almost sometimes wish that I could go right back to the start. What was that like to have almost zero expectations and just be so grateful to step on stage,
Yeah, I think super freeing, to be honest with you. I think it's probably more of a personal touch. 𝗵𝗵𝗵, yes, who I competed with initially, and they will still run actually posing clubs every month. So it would be you'd go and you'd see the guys and girls, and you get a much more family feel. And I think that still obviously goes on with the 𝗵𝗵𝗵. I think it's a little bit lost on Instagram, which is a shame because obviously you'd see them in the flesh, you'd build more of a relationship. But out with that, for the rest of the month, you didn't worry about it. And yeah, it was 100%. Freeing because you weren't constantly checking IG and worrying about who was in or what update they posted. So yeah, it was I guess a simpler time. Yeah.
For sure. And when you first started competing, what was talk me through, when you won your first show, was that your first show or did you,
No, hey, no, I've lost like time and again, I'll be honest with you,
have?
over and over and over. So I've done 212 would be my first show. I like to think it's 213, but it wasn't. It was actually 212, and I was an absolute disaster. Shook like a leaf on stage, got my diet way wrong, was far too fat, posing was poor, just an absolute, didn't enjoy it, to be honest with you. But then I kind of went away and I said, you know what? We'll give this another go. And the next year, I got third in novice class, but I qualified for the 𝗵𝗵𝗵 Britain. But again, so that's 212. I actually won my first show in 21. So from 212 to 2021, and I probably competed maybe 8 times, and I didn't win a sausage. I was always second, third. I got British invites. I did a world, I qualified, but I never won. So I always remember someone making a joke saying that if we melt down all your second and third place trophies, we might get a first place trophy. Which always stuck with me. But I think lost chance with you, lost time and again. But I always thought, hey, if we keep on going with this and make adjustments as we go, we'll eventually nail it. And I guess we have. So I think, just a shout to anyone out there who isn't winning. As long as you're enjoying it, and that was the big key thing for me, I was always enjoying it, it will come. And as long as you're astute and you're saying, hey, well, this is why I'm not winning. Is it condition? Is it size? Is it my posing? Like, what is it? And you make adjustments as you go, then hey, your day will come. Because in bodybuilding, you lose more than you win. And that's unfortunate. But your day will come if you stick to your basics and you keep at it. So
and of course you're a natural champion. Was there any points during that period of time where it was like, would I go down the assisted route, or have you always felt that you want to stick to natural?
Yeah, I think always wanted to stick to natural, to be honest with you. I think, I'll share kind of super quick. So when I kind of started, obviously I mentioned the guys from USN, those kind of NABRA and UKBAFF pros, they eventually said, hey, you've got a decent enough physique, maybe you should compete. And they said, the 𝗵𝗵𝗵, great fed, this is back in kind of 2010, 2011. They do some good stuff, why don't you compete with them? And I was like, okay. But never once did they say to me, hey, you should hop on something. They said, hey, look, see how far you can take your physique naturally. And then, if, you so wish, and I think, crack on. But at the time, I probably didn't really appreciate that because I think, as I mentioned kind of at the top of this, I thought those guys walked on water. I actually then went on to work for USN. So even more, I thought these guys are unbelievable. So if they'd said to me, hey, Alex, maybe if you take a wee bit of X and Y, then, that's what you need to do. 2021, you don't know much about anything. I certainly didn't. So I was, I would have done it, to be honest with you. I'm sure I would have done, obviously I'm 35 now. On reflection, I'm so glad I didn't. But at the time, I think I didn't really understand anything about, well, even supplements at 2021, if I'm honest with you. So never mind PEDs. So kind of forever grateful that those guys didn't lead me down that route. And then obviously I kind of got into, I'm just going to wrap this up super quick, but I then kind of YouTube videos, because there was no Instagram. Facebook was just a kind of a thing. 𝗵𝗵𝗵, natural bodybuilding, and a gentleman called Dave Kay came up his guest spot. I think it was the 𝗵𝗵𝗵 Scottish 2010. And I can still remember it now. And he hits a back double bicep. And Dave's a triple world champion, phenomenal athlete, and just the muscle and condition. And I was just absolutely blown away. And I can remember sitting at the kitchen table of the laptop watching it, and then pausing the still of Dave in the back double bicep and going, hey, if I can look a fraction of that, and this guy's natural, this guy's top of the tree, fine. But if I can make a fraction of that, then perfect. That I don't think I need anymore. And that was kind of always my mantra. That if I ever, looked like that, like Dave, then maybe I would. But I'm still chasing looking like that. But I'm still super buzzed with my physique. So yeah, I guess that's kind of been my journey through it. So no, I've never considered it. If I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of things you said there about, of course, we've touched on exploring your natural potential. And I think sometimes there can be that element of, well, where is my natural potential
Yeah.
what's the shelf life for that? And there's always this sort of confusion as to, okay, so if I'm competing with XY federation, then if they're untested and you are natural, of course, there's going to be those thoughts in your head to go, well, should I be using assistance? And this is where I think as well, promoting that there are several natural federations and you can pursue this to an international level if you want to stay in that lane. Then it's not just, you don't have to go down the IFBB route or, follow pressures of social media. You can really explore traveling internationally if you can do well in the natural realms.
Oh yeah, 100%. No natural shows. There's obviously, in the UK, there's the BNBF, who's then the world affiliate DFAC. There's the UK DFBA, WNBF, and they also have world affiliates WNBF Worlds as well. There's the Natural Olympia. There's great options out there if you can travel to the US. I've just back from Australia last month that I competed in. So, there's definitely great options to travel, as you say, and compete on a great stage naturally. Sure, if you want to go to the Olympia and you want to be, Phil Heath or Derek Lunsford, then okay, yeah, you're going to need to go down that road. But I think that's, if we've all been very realistic, that's kind of top percentile, guys and girls who are making a big living, out of this from purely competing. So, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're trying to hold down a normal job, which many of us are,
yeah, we are,
and
exactly.
family, other commitments outside
Yeah.
of that, it sounds like we're probably the same in regards to we do everything we can, but sometimes even for the top Olympians, life gets in the way, things happen, and you've got to, of course, try and gain that mindset of what are you doing this for? And sometimes bodybuilding can't be the priority. Now, for yourself, if there's been periods of time where it's like, of course you're chasing what you're doing in the bodybuilding, but when other things come up in life, what are your sort of mental health tactics and how you address that when things do arise?
Yeah, and I think you just touched on it. I was just kind of phrasing a slightly different way, but I think that's a key question that, I think I'm always trying to talk about and kind of think about is, what am I optimizing for? So what is, I think that's a great question. What does success look like to you, and what are you optimizing for? Two super, useful questions. And I think if you're clear on that, then everything else kind of flows down. Because, if bodybuilding is your thing and you want to be happy in bodybuilding, it's then, okay, well, how do I optimize for that? Whereas if it's your career driven, hey, how do I optimize, to be career driven, or what family, whatever, it may be. But no, certainly, yeah, I think probably the midpoint, I think, for me personally, probably the midpoint in my bodybuilding career was around, I was trying to do too much. I was trying to, be super focused on my career. I work for Optimum Nutrition, still in the supplement industry. So I was trying to, really optimize for that and bodybuilding and a relationship at the time. And it was too much and it all fell apart, if I'm honest. And it was one of those that was obviously a bit of a tough time trying to build that back up. But I think if you try to juggle too many balls eventually, especially with bodybuilding, you do need to be quite singular and quite focused. And I think at the end of the day, probably maybe a realization for me was that if you really love bodybuilding and training, that's okay. But you just do that. Don't worry about, oh, I should be doing X, I should be doing Y, and I haven't bought a house yet, or whatever it is. If you really love it, put it at the top of your priority list, but make sure, the career, whatever else, is then allowing you to live that lifestyle. Whether that's online coaching or personal training, whatever it may be. If that's the lifestyle you want to live, then go for it. But make sure your foundations are in place. And obviously as an online coach yourself, I'm sure you can speak to the freedom of being able to, train, meal prep, online coach. That must be a dream for you. So
yeah, for sure. It certainly, I used to work in a leisure centre as a gym manager, and the hours were nuts when I look back at Alex. It's like, how did I prep under this amount of, not stress, I suppose, but we all need a bit of stress.
There's time stress. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, long hours, etc., etc. And I guess for me, during those times where it was extremely hard in the prep, that all added to when I did win my first show, I was like, fucking hell, a lot of years and years and years have gone into this. You lift that trophy, and I'm sure you can relate, and you think it was all worth it,
Yeah, 100%.
And it is, when you do spend years of you know, not placing and what have you. Maybe we could talk about how that felt for you when you won your first show. How was that when your name got called?
Yeah, do you know what? It was so yeah. The first show I won was the BNBF Scottish overall. I know you can't tell from the accent, but I am Scottish. But
He is.
it meant being kind of Mr. Scotland meant a huge amount to me, especially my gym's kind of Central Scotland as well. A lot of people come to the show, so to be a Mr. Scotland meant an awful lot. If I'm honest with you, especially because it was my first show that I never placed in, so I think that kind of had a more of a special feel. But if I'm honest, like the moment I think your name gets called is brilliant, and then then afterwards you kind of realize that not an awful lot changes in your life.
I love you've said that. I love that.
So, and I'm sure you've a similar experience that you can speak to, but not an awful lot changes. And I think probably a lot of people do before you win. You think, do you know what? When I win, everyone's gonna love me on Insta. My followers gonna go through the roof. There'll be sponsorship deals. My door will be exploding with people who want to talk to me, and life will be different. And it's not. Maybe for within the Olympia it is, but for even good amateur level, pro level, it's probably not going to change too much. So I think it was that point I kind of really, I think came to dawned on me that if you don't love the journey, the destination of winning won't solve anything. So I'm not sure what your experience was like, if you want to share.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly the same. I genuinely, as soon as you said it, I'm like, this was exactly the same for me. That night, obviously, you're celebrating and everything's great.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I woke up and I thought, right, I'm the same person. And, I went for my walk, messages and stuff. And if you
Yeah,
share a post, you might
of
get,
course.
300 or 400 likes and you think, fucking hell, I'm famous. But
Yeah.
then it's gone, and
Yeah.
maybe we could talk about that in regards to, the post-show periods on one side of the coin of not placing, but then when you do place, when you weren't getting your top trophy for many, many years, did you struggle post-show?
Yeah, it's a lonely place. I think, when you haven't got the result, that you want. And I think probably what always, I think, actually helped me was that I think I was lucky that I had a lot of people and they message it. Because I think obviously you come off and you haven't won. I think your first thought is, oh, I was a disaster. I was shocking. And I think even a message saying, hey, Sarah, unlucky today, but, you looked brilliant. Thought, your conditioning, your symmetry, whatever, your routine was amazing. That can just lift you so much. So I think it's not really the fact that you haven't won. It's more like, geez, how did I look? And I think it's, for me, as long as I thought I looked phenomenal, as good as I could be, then the placing itself, in latter years always didn't matter so much. But initially, yeah, because I think all of us, who do compete, we are winners. We want to win, and not winning hurts. So yeah, it's definitely a tricky one. But I think, as you say, you woke up the day after you did win, and you didn't feel any different. And you got to go straight back to work. You're still back in your cardio, your meal prep, your training. So whether you win or you lose, you're doing the same thing anyway, because you're not going to stop. You're just going to keep on going. So I think probably the more experience you pick up, you understand that actually, win or lose, you're still waking up tomorrow morning, you're still doing your cardio, you're still weighing your oats first thing, and you're still getting out and you're hitting the gym. So probably not an awful lot changes, but I think that's definitely took me a lot of time to appreciate that. And in the early years when I was younger, the loss has definitely hit me hard, and it can be a dark place if you don't get the result you want. But I think if you've got good friends around you who say, actually, your physique's super impressive, we're proud of you, that can really help mentally.
Yeah, for sure. Was there any periods of time where, because I know in the female realms, male as well, but I talk from experience and other competitors that I know and work with, those elements of trying to stay lean, maybe self-restriction, anything like that you had?
Yeah, I think so. Even still, to be honest with you, I won the Britain last year, European pro card. My prep coach, Vicky McCann, I train out of her gym. Every day she's still shouting at me about, how much weight have you put on, how much weight have you put on? Because it's, and even now, me doing all this time. I mean, it's in a nice way, obviously. But yeah, it is difficult. It is super difficult. I mean, and again, I'm, what's this, 11 years into this, and I still find it really flipping hard, because you go from looking a certain way to even being any kind of minutiae not looking that way, and you're like, oh, I look a disaster, and it's, yeah. And I think, it's just natural. My prep last year was 38 weeks. If you go from 38 weeks to constantly looking in the mirror, as we all do, how do I look? How's my condition day after day, or several, pretty much maybe 4 or 5 times a day?
Yeah.
to then suddenly the next day, you can't just bang, turn it off and go, I don't care how I look, it's growing season, which is the right attitude to have, but you can't flip that switch and just do it. It's very difficult. So I think you just got to, I think having actually a plan kind of post show is probably the best thing. Have a weight target. You know, I've got a weight target. I want to put on 10 kilos and I want to do that over a progressive period of time. And that allows you to have some accountability. But yeah, it is, you know, even for, I guess, even for a guy, it's super difficult. You know, what's your experience in terms of kind of post show? Have you done the whole kind of post show binge, gone nuts, or like what have you, like reverse diet to put on no weight, or what's your experiences?
Well, we've got a collaborative now of like 23 years of competing. So I've done sort of 12 years. And certainly at the start, I always got led to believe that it was almost like, not, I didn't ever binge as in, you know, complete out of control, but I always felt like there was this, okay, well, you need to eat a load of shit food, because that's sort of what I saw. And, you know, it was like, well, I want to be like other bikini girls. And it was always from a place of wanting to fit into what other bikini girls were doing. And then as the years went on, I just found that it actually got harder, and I would do the sort of self-restriction thing, and then, you know, try and hang on to being leaner, maybe not be completely open with my coach and just be like, yeah, I'm okay. But the internal talk, you know, well, I'm sure you can relate. It's you become almost your own worst enemy. If you start, you've got to gain a bit of fat, haven't you, as you go, and it's tricky.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think probably the thing that I think has helped me is that, you know, is that when it's, you know, I guess off season, inverted commas, you know, this is your growing time. So every day you're in a surplus, you know, you're growing, you're getting better. And I think that's, you know, certainly something that helps me, but it's very difficult to get, you know, out of the mindset of I need to be shredded. How's my condition? You know, how's the feather on my quads looking like, to I just don't care about that. It's all about, I'm now a performance-based athlete. Because I think that's probably for me, you know, obviously when you're, you know, prepping for a show, you're very much, you know, based on the visual. Whereas obviously when it's off season, you are a performance-based athlete, you know, and it's all about, you know, more so in terms of, you know, your recovery, you know, your nutrition, and then just performing in the gym. But as I said, yeah, it takes time to get out of that. But I think, yeah, I mean, even I think I'm about 10 weeks now, and I'm still obviously nowhere near back up to full strength. I think that's okay, because, you know, I don't personally want to horse on, you know, 10, 15 kilos. So I've done that, and it isn't great. And I think, to be honest with you, I think I definitely feel worse for it. Like, what's the most you reckon you gain kind of post-show?
Well, the best growth phase I had, because until now, so I'm now at like 16 months of an off season. Now, the longest I'd done previously, over 10 years of competing, was 10 months. Now, mine was from a place of, you know, I was very unhappy in my personal life, so I just competed back to back and essentially ran myself right into the ground. And in that growth phase, I think it was about 16 kilos, but I just felt fat. I didn't feel good, you know, over that 10-month period. Now, doing it like this and going, okay, so I might have, you know, maybe 18 months, 2 years before I prep again. I've just slowly done it, and it feels so much better.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, agreed.
And I actually, I don't know about you, from sort of what you've heard and being on the scene, actually, unless, of course, we've spoken about the Olympia and you've got these athletes that are, you know, genetically gifted, they're humongous, you know, the guys, it's like, well, this is wild. For them to gain size, yes, there's merit. Push up a lot more than perhaps a lot of people think, when actually you could be just over maintenance and having a bit of a surplus and feed your training, rather than I'm just going to eat a shitload, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. I think, you know, we all listen to, the top Olympians, and they're talking about, you know, obviously they always talk comparison. You know, I'm, you know, from a male perspective, you know, I'm 280, like 300 pounds, and you're like, geez, that's the attitude I need to have. But I think essentially, you know, especially from in a natural realm, you know, you don't want to be putting on probably, excuse me, between shows certainly more than 15 kilos. I don't, unless you really need to eat up, because, you know, obviously it's, you know, mass moves mass. So the heavier you are, the more weight you move in the gym. And I think a lot of people kind of misappropriate that. Oh, wow, I'm so much stronger. It's like, yeah, but you're so much heavier. And that's, you know, you'd much rather be leaner, but moving, you know, no, maybe not as much weight, but it's still a good amount of weight because your actual muscles are doing that versus your body mass. But hey, look, I've done that the hard way. I've bumped up far too much, off season. I probably put on, kind of 15, 20 kilo some preps and being like, oh, look how strong I am. But I was really like, geez, look how fat you are, and it's and that's probably, a good takeaway. I think that you're right. As long as you're in a calorie surplus and your performance is good, hey, like you're doing brilliant. Like don't change a thing. You don't need to be, weight for weight's sake isn't the goal, because you just need to get off again. So
yeah, and also I feel like certainly for me, allowing a bit more time than I have previously, it's actually I've almost like adapted with that time span, rather than like before the attitude was 10 months. I've got to get, the weight up as much as I can. And it's
you push.
Yeah, and then at the end of the off season, you've got to lose all that weight.
Exactly.
So you feel terrible. I was eating all the time, and I've got a good capacity for food, but by the end, you're just like, I'm fucking sick of this,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I competed again in my early years, but back to back, and I think on reflection, I wish I'd taken, an extra year off. Again, especially naturally, because you need that time to build, but I never really appreciated that. So I think for my first show, and my first 5 years, I competed every single year, which in hindsight was a very silly thing to do. And I wish, so I'm glad you said that. I wish I'd taken more time, just to enjoy my training, build a physique. And again, because when you've only got, you come off stage, at the end of the season, maybe, I don't know, September, October time, obviously you're doing it UK wise, then to start prep again, you probably start again in maybe April, May. It's such a short window, and you'll push with food and everything else, and you're just not giving yourself, enough time mentally or physically to really recover. So definitely echo that in terms of, on reflection, should we have taken more time off when we were a bit younger, when we started out? It's a definite yes from me. So
yeah, I think as well, people hearing this and then maybe being in the position we were at the start, it's like, actually what you said there earlier about, enjoying the journey. And really, this is, yes, we all want to win, but don't enjoy the journey. Life's going to be pretty fucking shit, because every day we have a lot of boxes to tick, right? Like, it's not just, you can't, I mean, some people, maybe they can dabble and they get good results, but generally you need to work at this. And if that then monopolizes your brain power, that you feel like you have to do X, Y, Z, it's more like, actually, I choose to get up early, to go for a walk, and I always say, I really like being the weird one. I like being a bodybuilder. Are you the same?
Yeah. Oh, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I think a realization that came to me probably the last couple of years was that I actually asked myself the question: if there wasn't a trophy at the end of this or a title, would you still do it? I think I was probably like heavy into prep at this point. And the answer came back was like, well, yeah, I would, because I like prepping on my food. I like drinking all the water. I like my steps. I like going to bed early. I like how I feel. So even if there wasn't a trophy or a show, would I still do this? Yeah, I would, as you said, because I don't mind being the weird one. I think as time goes on, I think also the more you do it and the more kind of friends you make around the circuit, obviously, or, on social, you almost form a new friend group, if that makes sense. And you actually work out there's actually a lot of people like us out there, and they're not boring and they're not dull just because we don't go out at the weekend. And I think that's actually quite a powerful thing, that over time you will gravitate into different circles, and you'll find that there's a pretty cool community in the bodybuilding world, whether it's natural powerlifting, PED use, whatever. This bodybuilding fitness is a pretty cool community out there, and which you can lean into. So it's not a bad thing being the weird one.
Yeah, and it's like-minded people, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
it's almost like we're almost glitches in the system compared to sort of the rest of humanity sometimes. But like you described there, your world can very quickly become everything bodybuilding. And then there is that, I don't know if you found that sort of transition of the people maybe you went to school with, or uni, things like this. They sort of drop away and you keep some of them. But
exactly.
I feel like, the message is, it's okay to outgrow relationships.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. You know, very, very similar. You know, I have a good group of friends that we all went to school together. So we're still, you know, super close, but not as close as we once were because, you know, things do change. Yeah, and they're not into, we all obviously train, but they're not a slightly different level to what they are. But that's okay. And I'm super lucky that they're going to support me on the journey. But yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely a point in time that, you know, you migrate away because, you know, to be the best, you know, you have to be a little bit selfish in the bodybuilding world. And again, that's okay, you know, and I guess, I mean, selfish in terms of, I guess, time more than, I guess, attitude. But yeah, I think, you know, if you want to be super good at competitive bodybuilding at any level, then yeah, you do need to be a little bit selfish and you need to, you know, as you say, put, you know, you're all into it.
When we sort of think about relationships and if you were to have children,
Mm.
you know, close family, that can certainly be tricky. I don't know about you, but I found that just being really open and transparent with how important it is, I feel like that sort of, it stops that external pressure of people, you know, going, do you have to do this and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I'm super lucky. My girlfriend competes also, which I think can, you know, probably speaks to, you know, obviously, you know, meeting people in that community. Yeah, you know, Becca, she's actually a natural female bodybuilding champion, which is super cool. So yeah, she definitely gets it. But even so, obviously, there's days that, yeah, I think as you say, you know, if you're communicating properly as much as you can, no prep is easy. Especially, you know, having kids. I mean, I don't know how people do it and have kids. That's a serious endeavor, I think. But I think, you know, I think as you said earlier, you know, you find the time where needed. Your horizon will fit time wise to make it work essentially. But I believe your partner competes as well. So
Yeah, so he's into bodybuilding. He hasn't actually competed, and he sort of had this conversation when he, like, right at the start when he was lifting, he trained with, probably similar to your supplement store story, where he trained at the gym and there was this, like, you know, almost famous in the area bodybuilder,
yeah,
and they trained a bit and stuff.
oh
And
nice.
he's actually got lots of tattoos. So we've had talks around, you know, of course, I'm sure you're aware that can skew, you know, potentially what you see as muscle definition and maybe what the judges would award. And it's like that, does he want to compete or does he not? And do bodybuilding as like a, he calls it hobby building, but like,
Yeah,
you know, really enjoying the journey of what it can bring, the structure that it can bring. And it's, for him, you know, it's that I want to go in and win. How much would that mean I need to put into a big growth phase and then the diet down? And he's 35, so similarly to you, would he go down that route now? And it's sort of a decision a lot of people have got to make. Now, I know people go into it when they're 50 or 60, but it's a lot of commitment, isn't it?
oh yeah, no, massively. Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, especially if you have that mindset of, you know, I'm a winner and I'm going to give my all here. Yeah, it's 100%, you know, not just in the prep, you know, and in the prep, I mean, I think, you know, 20, 24 weeks, it's all in. It's then, as you say, you know, the growth phase as well. So yeah, it's massive. It's a massive commitment, especially obviously if you know, have, you know, professional commitments as well, you know, plus relationships. It's, yeah, it's definitely not easy to go into that. And plus, you know, I think you can bodybuild and not compete. Just because to get on the stage, obviously a very small part of it, you know, the real money is in, you know, as you say, the building of the physique, then dieting down. You know, you don't actually need to step on stage if you don't so wish. So
Yeah, I feel like almost for me, it was like the first time I did it, it was just literally like, can I step on that stage? You know,
yeah,
exposing myself nearly naked, and that was
yeah,
like, it was not me. I'm not like, I'm more like a tomboy, so it was like
yeah,
bloody hell. But then I feel like a lot of people can go either way. You can either do it once and you're like, I am so excited about what this could bring, and if I do it again, or it's like, I'm completely shell shocked. I never want to bodybuild again. And I'm sure
yeah.
you've come across that as well. That's a tricky one when it's like you've hit the pinnacle of what you see as your physique, and then it's like, I don't want to do it anymore, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I said, you know, my first show, you know, geez, I didn't, you know, you didn't understand the tanning, shaving, you know, any of it, to be honest with you. And I've been to watch shows before, you know. So I still don't know how, I think, yeah, it's a real experience because there's so much, as you say, goes into it. It's almost having the physique and building it is one area, and then it's almost being a stage performer to get up. Because I'm the same, you know, zero, you know, dancing, acting, nothing like that at school, zero, absolutely zero. So I wouldn't want to, so the thought of then obviously getting onto a massive, you know, concert hall stage, you know, and especially, you know, the routine at night. BMBS still runs a routine for every competitor, which, you know, I now love. But at the time, it was so nerve-wracking because you need to pick your music, you need to try and choreograph something. It's all you by yourself. Obviously, a pre-judge, or, you know, you're out with everyone, so, you know, you've been given instruction. But when it's just you and you feel all the eyes just directly on you, it's a serious undertaking.
And then the judges, you know, it's like,
Yeah,
you know, they're normally quite serious looking.
yeah,
Yeah, they're chatting between themselves and writing notes and things, and you're
yeah,
literally like, you know, you said shaking. I get it
yeah.
where I get uncontrollable shaky leg.
Really, yeah.
It's like I
That
don't
was
know.
me, my first show. That was me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
It's so
No, awful.
wild. I mean, as the
Yeah.
years have gone on, have you got better at being Zen master on show day?
I think it's for me, for me personally, I'm just better through repetition. You know, straight off the back, I'll probably be pretty average at something, but I guess I can get into a zone and it's just reps, reps, reps. And that's where, you know, I think certainly, you know, my posing is, you know, on prep, I pose every single morning. It's like one of those non-negotiable things I put in. I have a time in the day, you know, where I do it, and it's 15 minutes, and it's, you know, 3, 4 rounds of symmetry, and it's the same with muscularity, and it's constant, and I don't miss a day. And that's something I kind of latterly put in. But because before, you know, you just like, oh, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I don't want to pose, the last thing you want to do. But unless it comes supernaturally to you, I think it can, you know, it's such a game changer. You know, I've actually judged the last couple of the years for the BNBF, so I can say from a kind of judge's perspective how important, you know, posing is. If you have someone, you know, who's actually 10% better physique-wise, condition-wise, but their posing is atrocious, versus the second person who isn't as good, if their posing is better, more often than not, that person will actually win because their posing is nailed and they're actually showing everything to the best of their ability. So, you know, certainly I wasn't a natural poser, but I think, you know, I just went away, and again, it's just reps, reps, reps. Keep on doing it. I don't know what your experience of posing has been. Do you think you weren't a natural then to start? No, no.
No, it was like, what is this? And I've used many posing coaches over the years, and some of it was actually quite traumatic almost. I thought, you know, it's like you're at war almost. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God. You know, you don't get the move, and there was quite
Mm,
brutal ones that I saw, and it was like,
okay.
you're not doing
Yeah,
this, you need to flare your lat, and I was
yeah,
and then I started working with different posing coaches,
yeah,
getting my own sort of flair, as it were. I also realized what you said there, judging myself, but also being able to, you know, go through the ranks, as it were. I've
mm,
placed higher by 1 point because I feel that my posing was better than another
yeah,
competitor, and we had very similar physiques. And I
mm,
always say to people, you might see someone backstage that looks really good, but if they can't
yeah,
pose, what you just said there highlights it from,
yeah,
you know, someone else backing up my theories here, that actually it does
yeah.
make a big difference.
Oh, massively, yeah, absolutely massively. You know, I think I've judged, I think, in the last 3 years the BNBF from the circuit, and yeah, it's amazing. Even actually as a judge, it's super. I think, especially when someone's in condition, and then they turn to the back, but they don't turn on their glutes. And I'm talking from a male perspective, well, and female actually in bodybuilding, but they don't turn on their glutes and hams. But you can see, you know, they're in condition, but if they don't then turn to the back and they don't hit it, and you're just like, and if it's close, you're like, geez, like I know you're in condition, but you're actually not posing any of it. Whereas this person over here, they're not in as good condition, but they're nailing it. So I can see more. So it's almost, you know, you can't presume, you know, to judge what is there. It's only what can be shown. So as you say, when you see someone backstage, you know, they could pose, you know, like an absolute idiot, which is obviously unfortunate, but posing is such an important part, yeah, of bodybuilding.
Yeah, again, you know, if you're going to transition into being a competitor rather than bodybuilding, it's like, for me, if you can't exhibit your best physique,
Yeah,
and
well,
you know, yeah, if you don't have that motivation to do it, you've got to be uncomfortable if it's not natural, like it is, you know, for some.
yeah.
For us, it's like we've got to really work to actually almost enjoy it cathartically, in a sense.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think it's also that, you know, posing, obviously you have all your, you know, your mandatory poses, but obviously you can all hit them in a slightly different variation. I suppose probably more so, I guess, from the male perspective in terms of bodybuilding and female bodybuilding classic. But I think, you know, there's a variety of ways you can hit a pose to best showcase the physique you have. And I think that's, super important as well, that, people kind of, they spend the time kind of, where are my strengths? Like on this pose, if I hit it, I guess like textbook, do I look great in this? Maybe I don't. So I need to maybe turn my leg slightly more, to twist my chest around, whatever, it is. So it's really posing for your physique and being kind of self-aware around, one of my strengths, one of my weaknesses in this pose. Can I do a little something maybe to take away my weakness and accentuate my strength? And again, it's painful because you're like, hey, I can't twist that much. The amount of times that I can't twist, that hurt. I can't contort into that. But again, it's practice, because you probably can. It's just uncomfortable. You've just got to keep on doing it. And that's why I talk about reps. Like the more you do it, the better you'll get. But yeah, I'm 100%. Even the thought of posing to me, I'm just like, oh, here we go again. But
That's
it has to be
hard.
done. Right? Yeah, it's hard. It's so hard. I know.
It's like you say, repetition, and where you said about, if you're tired, you're hungry, etc., etc. And something I talk about as well is, if you've got if you know what's happening for your day each day. So ideally in a prep, we're as structured as possible. And
Yeah.
if you know that you've got a really taxing training session that day, or maybe some additional stuff has come up at work or whatever, it's like, okay, so do I need to get up at 5 in the morning and do my poses, and that be the priority if you're maybe not natural at it, and also do it while you're fresh? And I feel like as bodybuilders, and if you're competing, for me, it used to be like, okay, I've started my day, I've done my posing, which is my
Yeah, I'm
hardest
exactly the
bit.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
it was like the
100%.
hardest bit.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm always the same. Yeah, I was always, get up, still am, steps first thing, and then immediately I come back, stretch, and then I pose. So I kind of have it slotted into that a specific time that I have to do it. And you're right, because once it's done, it's like, oh, it's freeing, it's out of the way. Whereas I think, as you say, if you push it to later in the day, like something else will come up, or whatever else, and then you don't end up doing it. And then, as we all know, prep can actually whiz around, and you're like, geez, actually, I haven't put in the time. And then you're nervous, because that's how I used to be in my early shows. I didn't do the prep, and then the day before I'd be super nervous because I knew I hadn't put in. I'm like, oh, what if we do 3 rounds of muscularity? Like, I'm going to start sweating. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, I'm just not going to enjoy it. So I was more nervous because I knew my posing wasn't on point because I hadn't done the prep. Whereas I think, as you say, like if you do the prep, you almost free yourself from that mental anxiety of, the nerves before the show. Because if you go into a show and you've done everything, your diet, training, and your posing as best as you can, the night before, you should probably sleep quite easy, because you've done all the work, versus skipping it along the way and then being super nervous and not being able to sleep because you're like, oh, I'm not really as prepared as I could be for this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, you're spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly leads to the excitement. And I feel like, for a lot of people coming into it, it is like, well, I can really get my nutrition nailed, I can do my training. And actually, most people probably, not everyone, but most people probably could actually adhere to being able to do a diet and training if they really wanted to. And of course, there's
Yeah.
lots of reasons why people don't. And that's why we're a small percentage, right? But
Yeah.
when you then go into a prep, it's like, guys, do you understand? There's a lot more to it. And I don't know about you, but if there's that likelihood I'm going to miss one of my boxes to tick, or whatever, that can actually lead to more anxieties if you're not structuring your day. Because in a prep, for me, I'm giving my life over to the prep and to my
Yeah.
coach. It's like, I don't want to step on stage thinking I didn't hit my food plan, didn't do that training session, unless you're ill or something. It's
Yeah.
it's a serious thing, and I think sometimes that can often be missed when people embark on a prep. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's a lot. I think, and yeah, if you are missing X and Y, it can definitely, yeah. I think I definitely struggle with that. I think obviously on the flip of it, that when you do is, all the things, and you do take your boxes, I mean, that's kind of, for me, I always feel like I'm better every day. Something I say to myself is like, if you've got 10 things that you need to do, daily to be the best you can be, and you're clear on what you need to do, when you go to bed at night, and for me, I think it's a great feeling. I'm better today than I was yesterday, and then you kind of build that up as like, money in a jar, and you just keep on doing that. And then I think that's kind of, for me, a kind of super useful strategy that I've found on prep, to actually feel that you're going, in a positive direction, as opposed to, oh geez, I'm so tired, I'm so sore, whatever else.
Get
It's
worse.
actually exactly, yeah. I'm actually better every single day because I've ticked all my boxes. And as you say, when you get to the end of it, it's almost like, hey, I couldn't have done any more. And I think, mentally that's quite freeing, because that kind of takes you into whether you kind of win, lose, or draw. As long as you ticked all your boxes and you can stand over it, and I can say to you, hey, Sarah, I've done every single day. I've ticked my 10 boxes. I've done it for however, 24 weeks. I couldn't have done any more. Then I think you can more often than not, you'll walk away not too disappointed, in the physique and the performance that you have. So
Yeah,
I
pride,
think
to
yeah,
do this choice. And that's something I always try and, get the message across, that this is a choice, and these boxes,
exactly.
we don't have to do this.
Yep.
I feel very privileged. It sounds like you're the same. And essentially, again, we don't have to do this, but having that opportunity and seeing it as an opportunity, and what can I do with my physique, that brings so much merit to when you do get on stage. You're like, I did that. Nobody
Yeah,
else.
exactly. That's
You
so
know,
well said. Yeah.
yeah. It's,
Yeah.
of course, you have your coach. And have you always had a coach through your bodybuilding journey?
Yeah, no, I have. Yeah, I've had various. Probably since 2015, I've had 𝗬𝗵𝗵𝗆, and then but that's how I've always done it. But yeah, no, you're spot on. I couldn't echo that more. Yeah.
And I would like to ask you, actually,
Oh,
having a
go on.
female coach, did you have females before, or was that
No,
first?
I started off with a male, and then didn't. I think if I'm honest, and this probably isn't the same for everyone, but I'll share kind of super quick my experience, that initially I had a coach who wasn't natural, and I was his only natural client, and I think he probably struggled. I probably tried to didn't quite understand with the natural body. And I think we kind of, that's why my early years, my my placings weren't as good. Moved then to Vic, who, Vicky's a 𝗬𝗶𝗍 pro, and she's a natural bodybuilding champion. 𝗬𝗵𝗵𝗆 on Instagram. She's a, super phenomenal physique. Vicky 𝗬𝗶𝗍 pro. She's been, doing it for a lot of years. And, Vicky, I think as a natural athlete herself, really understands what it is a natural, kind of needs. So kind of since I've been working with Vic, it's been great. And I think, obviously Vicky being female, obviously, but Vicky is she's only small, maybe, I don't know, 5'4", something like that, but she's jam-packed with muscle, incredibly strong. Yeah, I know you kind of talked at the top of this about being a tomboy. I think Vicky's probably quite similar, to be fair. And we know we have, it's a super, even obviously kind of male, female, she's a straight shooter, and she's, so it probably feels like having a guy coach, to be honest with you, because she just says it bang straight down the line like it is. So
And do you find the levels of communication, again, it's something that I feel is super important. Do you feel like you can literally go to her with anything?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you have to have that, because you're in your head so much. I think, as we talked at the top of this, you're looking at yourself so many times, different times a day. Am I flat, full, am I watery? You're constantly. And sometimes you just need someone to say, Sarah, you're absolutely fine. Stop looking at yourself. Just crack on and get it done.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I just decompress. Look, we're on track. Don't stress it. Yeah. And exactly, exactly that, and I'm lucky that I've been working with Vic since, I think, 2014, I think. So, it's a long time. And I think, obviously, I'd certainly, recommend, if you find someone that you work well with, give it time and just stick with it. But I think on the flip of that as well, your coach needs time to understand your physique. And obviously I'm not an online prep coach, so I'm not trying to sell anything here. But I think, if you stick with one coach, if you're confident in what they can deliver, the more time you give them, the better results you'll get together, because they'll understand your physique more and more over time. No one's a magician. They're not going to see your physique, for a year and boom, turn you into an Olympian. So you do need to give it time, as you say, have that two-way communication around, hey, whether it's, diet, training, whatever it is, because, look, I think hats off to people who, prep themselves. I've got so much respect for that. I couldn't do it. Absolutely couldn't do it. No, because I think, especially on prep, I think you'll either go one or two ways, depending on the person you are. You'll either do too much, which I think probably you and I would fall into that camp, and just, ham yourself into the ground, or you won't do enough and you'll end up fat. And I think neither is a useful outcome when it comes to stage. So I think, you do need someone to say, hey, look, everything's on track. Leave this with me. And I have, from a personal perspective, I have, 100% trust in Vic that, you know, she knows, you know, my body inside out, and she knows, we know what we're doing. And obviously the results from the last year, you kind of speak for themselves. But obviously, as I said, you know, it's taken us a long time to get there, but we gave it time, and it'll come off. So I think, you know, if I probably just, you know, offer any advice, it would be for people to do similar, you know, find a good prep coach, stick with them, give it time.
Yeah, yeah. And when we talk about communication and relationships, have you found that there's certain things you in a prep with your other half? Now, if you're prepping together, that could lend itself, but of course, I know couples that it actually gets quite tricky. But is there
Yeah.
things that you would recommend if someone's listening and maybe, you know, they are finding it really tough, but they're finding it quite hard to maybe tell their partner it's tough? Is there anything that you'd sort of recommend they do, and thought processes you would have?
Yeah, I think it is difficult, 100%. I think as much as you, I think probably, you know, on a personal level, the more you can probably let that person in to what you're feeling. And that's, it's an easy thing for us to sit here and say that's what you should do, because, you know, it is difficult to open up. But, you know, even if it's, you know, if it's nerves or whatever else, I think, you know, you can say to the person, look, I think I'm actually maybe behind on prep here, and I'm struggling, you know, because I think I need to lose maybe, you know, to be on my, you know, my targets, you know, probably another 2 kg in the next week, or my strength's taking a massive dip. I can't nail this pose. You know, I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing, but it does get into your head. It's, you know, it's a back double bicep and you can't hit it, you know, or hit it the way you like. That's all that's in your head. It's just on repeat, especially a couple of weeks out. So I think, you know, obviously, if you keep that to yourself, they're not going to know. Even if they do compete, you know, they'll get, you know, obviously you're under a bit of pressure because the show is rolling around. But I think the more specifics you can share with them, especially if they do compete, because then obviously they can share more about their own. And I think, as you know, we probably both know that, you know, if you let your guard down with somebody, they'll more than often than not do the same. Whereas if you've all got the walls up and no, I'm fine, then you kind of wall them out, which isn't a helpful kind of scenario. So I think, yeah, just the more specifics you can share with them, I think the better. And then obviously everything should be, you know, a little bit more smoother sailing. And I say that from a place of having relationships previously that I haven't done that, and the walls have always been up and it hasn't worked. And you just try and soldier on. But I think, yeah, I think on reflection, that's probably the best strategy. How have you found it? Do you think you've kind of evolved over your time competing in terms of how much you shared, or?
Yeah, for sure. I used to think, like you described there, it's like, I'm okay. And I sort of, I tie it into like where I was like, this is a choice. I thought, well, I shouldn't be moaning. Now it's reframing it. I'm not moaning. It's just fucking hard. And then
Yes, how you
like,
feel. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, that's okay that it's hard.
Yeah.
But, you know, all the reframing that we can do, and we've spoken about a few things today, it's like reframing your growth phase and how you think about the certain things. And when you're in a prep, you know, if you're hungry, well, you're going to be hungry. That doesn't mean you're moaning. It's like,
Yeah.
well, actually, could you say to your partner, even if they're a non-bodybuilder, could we go for a walk just to keep busy? And you know what it's
Yeah.
like in the depths of prep when you're like, I just need to not be focusing on the food, etc. And it does get in your
Yeah.
head. Actually, I'd be interested to talk about your relationship with food. So we've spoken a bit about reversing out and how that is tricky, wanting to stay lean, of course. Have you
Yeah.
found an effect on how you sort of view food or treat food in that regard?
Yeah, I think it's probably evolved. I think evolved over time in terms of kind of, you know, relationship with food. I'm honest with you, because I think probably before I probably got heavy into bodybuilding, you know, I was probably, yeah, probably a bit of a foodie, and I certainly was probably a little bit overweight kind of growing up. So I think, you know, definitely love some, I guess, you know, high fat, high cal food. You know, I'm not one of these that hates food at all. I think kind of just over time, I think I've kind of looked at myself as more of the, if I'm a bodybuilder, then I need to be fueling my performance. And, you know, does a bodybuilder eat McDonald's every week? You know, a good, you know, professional level bodybuilder? No, they don't. Can they enjoy that once in a while? For sure. But I think it then turns, for me anyway, I kind of flipped it into, you know, if bodybuilding is what I want to do, and I am a, you know, but now obviously a pro level bodybuilder, but previously a very good amateur level bodybuilder, what are the things that I need to eat? Because I think if we said, you know, it's the journey. It's not, you know, I'm not a bodybuilder 5 days a week, and then the weekend I'm, you know, Joe Blogs. It's then turning it into, actually, this is what I need to eat consistently. And I think kind of that mental approach for me really helped in terms of, you know, because you can't do both. You want the best results. So that's probably kind of the biggest change for me But that said, do I still love pizza, cake, etc., 100%? Is that going to fuel my performance and make me better? Also, no, it's not. So it's then, hey, but can I enjoy this once in a while? Yeah, for sure. But if it's going to make me the best bodybuilder out there, no, it's not. So hey, we're not doing it. I'm sure you're familiar, that a lot of people are, with the mantra of will this make the boat go faster? From Steven Peters, the chimp paradox. So if it's something, a lot of the times you're asking yourself the question, will this make me a better bodybuilder? And if the answer comes back no, then hey, maybe I'm not going to do it. And obviously that's a difficult mindset over time to build, but I think the more you do it, and I think that really helps with your food choices. Certainly helped for me anyway. So
yeah, because then when we transfer that into, some people do meal plans, some people do flexible dieting, or maybe in a prep, a food plan is often easier, as you just rinse and repeat, etc. But I've always had this element of flexible dieting and then sort of creating my plan with my coach to go, okay, so this is what my prep plan is going to look like. And in my last prep, where I pushed that a little bit more to get leaner, it actually got to the point where it was just like I can't really sit down and think this is going to be really satiating, I'm going to enjoy every part of this. But you reside yourself over to being a bodybuilder, and that also transfers, of course, into if you are socializing, if you are a bit more flexible in the off season, it's trying to have those fundamentals that you mentioned earlier of, okay, so have I done my steps, have I trained, have I drunk my water, okay, so I can enjoy a meal out. But like you say, if it creeps into wanting to at other time, it can certainly be quite hard the next day to go, okay, I'm back on my food plan.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I've always, the prep I've never done personally, cheat meals or refeeds. I mean, I think kind of mentally I'd really struggle, I think, in getting back on. So it's interesting that you say that. Yeah.
It's hard, in the past when I did have these, we spoke about like post show, I'd have maybe eat to capacity, and it's certainly much more than I needed to. But the next day, you can almost feel like swayed by, I don't really want to have the normal foods. But now I'm at a point, again, 12 years later, it's like, when I sit down for a meal, I'm like, this is health. This is my training performance. I'm so glad you said that, because this is where I talk about it. These foods aren't boring for me. I actually very much enjoy the foods that I'm having, and I'm sure you're the same.
No, 100%. And I think something that's probably hit me, I guess, slightly, later on, is that I actually really enjoy eating a meal and digesting it well. So versus having a meal and then loving the taste, but then for the next hour, 2 hours, exactly that, you're then feeling horrendous. And for me, it's now like that trade-off is no longer worth it. So I'd actually rather have a meal that's maybe on the taste scale, a 7 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10, but I then actually feel good, post having it, versus feeling absolutely horrendous, then waking up the next day being super dehydrated as well. So I think, it's probably having a bit of a longer view on your food choices, of how that actually makes you feel, not just in the moment, but then the next couple of hours and the next day. Because you say, we're trying to fuel performance. So, and that's the key at the end of the day. So
yeah, for sure. And what are your plans as you move through? Are you going to do a longer growth phase this time?
Yeah, so obviously, so I just finished up competing there in November. Got back from the AMB DFEC Pro Worlds in Australia, so we just got back end of November. So still trying to kind of put some weight back on post show and kind of balance everything back out. So obviously won my card back end of last year. So the next time I get on stage will be the British Grand Prix, and so I'm going to do 2025. I'd love to compete, this year coming, but realistically, and again, we talked about this at the top, is that being analytical about your physique. Am I of that level currently to stand next to the guys at the top level of the pro natural scene in the UK? Absolutely not. So I need time to be analytical and say, hey, I need to work on X, Y, Z, and I need to and that's going to take time, new training plan, new protocols, put that into place. And then, if we've made the changes that, hopefully we'll make, it'll be good to go and, probably the end of 2025. So
How does that feel?
Yeah, no, it feels good. It feels really good. I mean, obviously it's, as we said, it's, I definitely miss being lean. I do like being in condition, but I think I'm super excited to see, what performance can be for me. Very aware as well, kind of, the age I'm at, just turned 35, that this is probably my prime year. So I'm very kind of, focused on delivering everything I can while I'm kind of in inverted commas, I'm kind of, my prime, and then, see how good we could be. Because I don't want to look back at the end of this and say, hey, do you know what I wish I could have done X, Y, Z. If I'd applied myself more, or whatever. So yeah, excited to really try and hit this, and then see if we can make a mark in about, the pro world stage 2025. So that's
it's
the
almost
plan.
that I guess, I talk about this resigning yourself over to everything is for that
Yeah,
stage
that goal. Yeah.
performance. And I don't know, I seem to have been able to foster that mentality, and it sounds like you have. Did you have points where it was quite hard to accept that, 2-3 years can go into one or a few stage performances over a season?
I think certainly, probably, rolling it back a little bit, that people competed maybe once, twice a year, which is potentially, I think, for me, maybe too few. Where I think now we seem to have, because there's so many different federations, people are competing, geez, like 8, 9, 10, playing more times a season, which is obviously just crazy. I think, obviously, I think it's different if you have different social media goals. I appreciate that. Obviously, plays a big part into, terms of trying to people to build their credibility, and their reputation. As you say, post show, you'll get, hundreds of likes if you do well, and you'll want to repeat that feeling over and over. So I 100% can understand that. I think, really, my own personal approach is, do the really good shows and just, stick with that, because there's so many federations, and obviously you got to start somewhere for sure. But I think, for me personally, I think everyone knows where the good federations are. They know where the good titles are. And I think, if you focus on those, that should be your kind of your primary. If you really want to have credibility and be good, I think in this game, that's probably where you need to focus. And I think trying to peak in probably more than, probably 3-4 times a season is very difficult, if you're doing it properly. So I think that's probably the most that I probably stick with, is in terms of probably 3-4 shows per season. I think that's probably the sweet spot for me personally. I don't know, obviously with bikini, it's not quite an extreme look. Do you think you have a different perspective on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got caught in the past of doing several shows in a season, sort of my previous position, and then getting invites and stuff like this and different
Yeah.
federations. I think you sort of, like you said there, you start to learn what I don't know if better is the right word, but the
Yeah.
federations that can lead you to maybe international or a pro card that's got
Yes.
a bit more weight behind it.
Yeah.
And then
Well
you
said.
realize, yeah, it's, quality over quantity per se, but
Exactly.
probably a learning experience. Now, of course, there's lots of different things where you can go to. You mentioned earlier group posing workshops and things. So you
Yeah.
get experience doing stuff like that. And have you got any other recommendations before we wrap up with, people that are getting into it for the first time, with what they need to think about, if there's anything we haven't covered today in regards to getting into the sport and working out whether it's for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think probably the biggest thing, for me, and I think it's probably lost somewhat, is go to a show, buy a ticket, and actually bum on seat, watch a show. Because obviously it's one thing on Instagram seeing clips or pictures, or, let's be honest, no one's actually watching a full show on Instagram. You might catch a bit of the live stream, but you're not actually kind of seeing it. And as I think we both know, is very different in real life to Insta. So, I say, buy a ticket, sit front row and see it all, and you can see the tan and the glaze, and you'll see people shaking, you'll see all of it. And then I think that gives you a much better indication as to, is this for me? So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then I think probably the second thing for me is also, and this is where IG is good, is that if you kind of follow the people, I'm sure you will, if you're thinking about it, the top people in, whatever federation or, kind of discipline you're looking at, where do they train? And, can you get to that gym? Because if you're training maybe at a pure gym or a David Lloyd or something like that, maybe get to an independent gym and try and see some of these guys and girls in action. And obviously don't interrupt their workout. But if you can, again, see it in the flesh, I think that's such a powerful driver. I mean, I'm lucky enough to be friends with a couple of guys, Chris McCready, Dave Kay, who are kind of top natural pros. And if you see them in the gym in real life, you're just like absolutely blown away by their intensity, their strength, just their drive. And I think, if you can't get on Instagram, it doesn't come across in a video. You need to kind of see it firsthand. So that's the two things that I'd say, is that, try and get to a show, and then you try to get to a gym where, the top guys and girls are training. And then I think maybe that gives you a sense of, hey, is this for me or not? So
Yeah, for sure. When you see them in the gym, like, holy shit. But it
yeah,
inspires, as we've said, it's
yeah,
really cool to have, people that you look up to in the sport. And of course, it can become, you know, a little bit self-centered. There can be egos and things like this, but there is also athletes that are similar to you and I talking today, where it's great to see other people achieve and be part of that journey, of course. Now, if people have listened and they'd like to follow you, I'll put your Instagram handle in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You may get a message. We might get some reshares on the stories, which I'm sure you're up for.
Yeah, of course, 100%. Yeah, no, all questions. Yeah, gratefully received. Yeah, 100%. And I need to close that off. Obviously, you know, in the gym as well. You know, go and chat to these guys and girls, because more often than not, the best guys and girls are actually really good people as well, and they're more than happy, you know, just to share, as we're doing here, you know, share some proper first-hand insight that, again, you're probably not going to quite get on IG.
Yeah.
So yeah,
IG is good for connecting us, but sometimes it can be a tricky space. So I love that, you know, the face-to-face value stuff and actually understanding, is this right for you, or maybe you do it as more of a hobby and you enjoy the lifestyle. So certainly some considerations for the listeners today. But thank you so much for coming on, Alex. I really appreciate it.
No, pleasure. Absolutely loved it. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.